Joining us now is Donnell Henry. He's actually a pilot based off Atlanta, Georgia. Hello, Donnell, and thank you for joining us for today's conversation.
Hey, glad to be a part of it. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. So, for our viewers who may not know you, can you first start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
All right. Like you said, my name is Donnell Henry. I currently fly for PSA, which is a subsidiary of American Airlines. I fly as a first officer on these planes, CRJs, 27s and 9s. They're smaller regional aircraft that carry typically about 50 to 100 passengers around from smaller airports to bigger hub and spokes. Um, Before getting into the world of airline transport piloting, I used to instruct. I taught international Chinese students who came to America in hopes for a better opportunity, teaching them how to fly. And now they have moved on. I have attained my time, and now I am in the world of airline transport piloting.
It's amazing.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, awesome. And for those who may not be aware, pilots and crew members are essential workers, correct?
They are. We are.
All right. Cool, cool. So, as an essential worker and as a pilot, what would you say keeps you motivated to show up to work every day?
What keeps me motivated? That's a two-part thing in a sense. As far as my family, as it relates, being the breadwinner of my family, my wife doesn't work. I have a little daughter. She's home right now in school and taking care of my daughter. It motivates me to go to work because, I have to take care of my family as well. But the other aspect of it is, being an essential worker. We have a key role in society by moving passengers, place to place. Not only just passengers, but freight as well from place to place. So we play a big role, in a sense. If we stop our motion, if we stop our doing what we do, it could bring the rest of the economy down to a grinding halt. So, it's very scary out there, right now. But between those two things, as far as, providing for my family and doing what we have to do to at least keep the society going, is why I constantly go out there and do what I do.
Amazing. Have you or someone you know experienced some sort of prejudiceness when it comes to your occupation?
Mm-hmm. For sure. I personally haven't, not just yet. But I've had other friends, other crewmates that fly for the airlines. They have. And the real thing is, a lot of people are afraid in a sense because of our interaction with passengers that us moving from point A to point B may possibly spread the coronavirus. I had a friend of mine that works for another airline. Him and his crew had went to a hotel, I should say, and there was a lady and a gentleman sitting down. I think it was a husband and wife possibly sitting down and interacting with each other. And when they saw the crew coming through the door, they immediately turned to them and said, "Hey, you guys are the reason why this thing is spreading around." So yeah, people are definitely, I wouldn't say it's many, but there are a good few people out there right now that's like, "Hey, you guys are the real reason why this is happening." I mean, even for my mom's profession, my mom's a respiratory therapist, which is right now one of, I think, the key things, because they're the ones that's running all the ventilators and putting people on, ice for XYZ. There was actually in Atlanta, a lady who just came off of work, was an essential worker. I think she was a nurse, who went to go get gas for a car and got shot and killed.
What?
Yes. It's kind of crazy right now because family members are angry. They're upset. They can't come to the hospitals. The hospitals are, they're not allowing people in to come visit. So people are definitely upset with, those, especially those key essential workers. Maybe not so much us. Like I said, I haven't experienced it firsthand. But yes, people do not like the fact that we are out there. If they have to abide by the rules, they believe that we should have to abide by the same rules of, being home, social distancing, XYZ. But we can't. We have a role to play in society, and we have to do what we have to do.
Very true.
So,
wow. It's very disturbing. Wow.
It is very disturbing, to say the least. And it is very scary, in our own regard, that you just don't know, who's out there for you, who's not. You just can't have that on your mind. You just got to go out there and do what you have to do. And that's really, that's, for me, that's what I do. I mean, I know this thing is out there running rampant, but I don't put that in my mind as, okay, I can't, I'm afraid, I can't. I just got to go out there and do what I have to do, for my family first, and then for whatever it is for society next. And that's it.
So as the coronavirus pandemic raises the stress and anxiety levels for Americans, and airlines have drastically reduced its service. How would you say airlines have taken the steps to reduce interaction between the passengers as well as crew members?
What we have done to take the steps to reduce interactions, we have social distances has been a big thing. So with the airplanes mostly being empty, very few people are flying. I mean, on planes that carry 70 upwards to 150 passengers, you may only have 12 people on board of that plane that are actual individuals traveling. So what we have done in the airline world, we have spaced individuals out drastically. Increasing the distance from 1 to 1 reduces the possibility of the transfer of that virus. So we may have one individual in first class towards the front right. You may have 3 seats down, another person to the left. So that's one way we have done that. Another thing we have done, boarding, an initial boarding process when you get your tickets. Gate agents typically used to, take your card, your ticket, and scan it in. Mm-hmm. Once they give you that ticket, or once you get that print of the ticket, they what they do is they tell you themselves, the passenger, to scan your ticket in. Okay. So they're reducing that interaction and that distance of that coming close to that gate agent and that passenger. They're reducing that by allowing the passenger to scan their ticket in by themselves. Another thing we have done as well in the airline world is we have stopped giving drinks and snacks on flights. Okay. So what that does for the flight attendants, that stops the interaction once again, coming in close quarters with passengers, and it allows flight attendants to remain more safely away from passengers, thus reducing, the numbers if, a passenger has the virus, reducing the spread of that virus. One last thing we have done recently is we got approved for American Airlines. I don't know about the rest, but American Airlines, PSA, Envoy, all the subsidiaries of American Airlines, they have given us masks to wear. So now we can wear masks. It's authorized to wear masks with our uniforms. As far as pilots and first officers, it's a little bit more difficult to wear a mask while doing my job, because I have a headset on, I have a mic in front of me. But I think as it relates to the flight attendants, because those are the individuals who are mostly coming in contact with individuals, they, I think, have priority, and it should definitely wear a mask in their operational phases of flight.
I'm going to just follow up with some questions. So the question comes to me, if you're having a flight that can hold about 70 passengers or more than 70 passengers, and you're only having about 12 people on per flight, do you think the flight is actually worth, pursuing? Or
so that is a question many have asked, and it's actually funny. I flew a flight 3 days ago. I flew a flight from Dayton, Ohio to Dallas Fort Worth, and Dallas Fort Worth is a big place. It's a very big airport, and I had 6 passengers on board. Wow. We burned close to about, I think, 4,000 to 5,000 pounds of fuel, and that does raise questions. Hey, does this make sense for us to fly these routes? So there's 2 parts of that. Well, some say, hey, we can stop flying, save the money that we're spending on fuel, and conserve on, maintenance of the airplane, and just pay the workers on the ground. But the other part of that question is, hey, if we stop flying, as pilots, we are pay protected. We are covered. There is a possibility of us getting furloughed. Those are things that definitely come into mind. But as it relates to us, we typically right now are in a good place of still being able to be paid. But what about the other entities that fall aligned with that? The individuals who do lab service, the individuals who refuel the plane, ground crew, air traffic controllers. So the thing is, I think there's more. If we stop flying, there's more that will be affected than we actually think would be. And in addition to that, there are things that we need to move around. There's still freight. We don't carry much freight on our planes, but there are still some things that do need to move around. Okay. So I don't know. I think I don't really have a good, clear understanding of why the airlines is doing it, but I do believe that it is for a reason, especially for giving the individuals on the grounds jobs and abilities to, attain money and work in some form and facet. Okay.
So another thing I have to ask you, when it comes to the end of the flight, you always pilots would stand next to their cabin and just wave. Is that something that's also been stopped when it comes to keeping a distance away from passengers and flight crew, cabin members?
I think that's personal preference, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Me and my captain on our legs, we did not personally go out there and say goodbye to the passengers, but the flight attendants did.
Okay.
And once again, like I explained, those are the ones who are coming
Yeah.
mostly in, encountering, the passengers. But on a flight home, I deadheaded home. Basically, I landed in one place and I came home to be with my family. And both times the crew did come out and wave the passengers goodbye. It's a personal preference thing. There has not been a email from our company or any information from our company from head coming down for us to stop doing that. So I just think it's just based off of what you want to do, and how you feel. I do think it is. I think it's a cool thing to still do. But if you have small children at home, or just depending on how you feel about this pandemic, I would say, because some people don't take it serious. Some people do.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely personal preference.
Okay. So some flight attendants have stopped going home in between like their trips, or worried about infecting the family that they have at home, while others are meticulous about changing their work clothes before going into their homes. What routines would you say you have practiced so that you could remain healthy and not, potentially infect your family or people that are close to you?
For sure, that is a very big question. As for me, I actually do not park, because I do not live on base. So I don't park my vehicle on base. I park my car in Atlanta, and I, travel from one airport to another airport to go to work. So it is definitely an inconvenience in that behalf. So my wife typically comes and get me, but if my wife comes to get me, my child also comes with her, because she's a 7-month-old.
Wow.
And that is definitely the most scariest part of the trip, because obviously I'm out there, with the possibility of being exposed to a virus that I may not know if I have or not.
Right.
So typically when that happens, my wife is definitely masked up. The baby is covered over. And I don't touch any one of them until I go home. I take my clothes off in the garage area, and then I go immediately into the shower.
Yeah.
That is then when I would definitely go and encounter my daughter and my wife. And actually, since this coronavirus thing has gone around, I haven't really. I will spend time and play with my daughter, but I try not to get close to her face quarters. I still am fearful for the fact that I possibly can give her some form of exposure of this, and that's the last individual I would want to get sick, because of course of her age.
Right.
If she gets sick, there's a high possibility that she probably won't make it. So for sure, as it relates to that, I definitely take those precautions. Don't touch my family members. Before I get in the vehicle, I do have handy wipes on, sanitary wipes that I wipe myself down. I wipe my iPad, my phone, my devices down, so that I do not spread whatever may be on me, on my wife and daughter.
That's respectable. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. In your opinion, what long-term effects will this pandemic have on flights and travel as a whole?
It's rough right now. I had a couple friends who are furloughed. As you probably know, you may not know, there are two airlines that actually went bankrupt. They were subsidiaries of other airlines. We had TSA. They were going bankrupt. They fully ceased operation as of April 1st. Compass Airlines, who flew for Delta, they completely ceased. It's looking a lot rougher than we thought. When this thing first started happening, going around, we assumed, hey, we probably would lose out on the spring, possibly some of the summer, and we'd probably get back flying heavy in the winter. But right now, it's not looking pretty. The flights are not necessarily increasing in capacity. Airlines are, losing money big time. We're parking planes left, right, and center. Delta parked 600 planes. American Airlines, they put out a early retirement for over 600 pilots, and just another set for another 600 pilots. To be honest with you, it's from an airline point of view, it's going to be hard to recover, especially within this year. I think for sure within the next year we'll recover. We'll probably pick back up speed. As you know, the airlines was in an airline shortage. So it was no better time to be an airline, be a pilot, but now. But right now it's rough. Airlines have ceased operations as far as, bringing in new pilots, fresh pilots coming in. There's few flights available. Um, I don't see, like I said, for this year, I definitely don't see it getting much better. If not, I see it not necessarily. I don't know if it's going to get worse, but I don't see it getting much better. As far as the coming years, individuals, like everything else, people forget things, pretty fast. Um, eh, I definitely think by next year we'll be right back up to the numbers that we were doing, earlier, last year and the start of this year. I don't think people are going to be afraid for too long to fly, especially once a vaccine or what have you comes out and things start making a change for the better. I definitely think it will pick up, but for this year, no, I don't see it getting much better.
Does it kind of feel like a weird, eerie moment when you are stepping into like the airport and it seems very empty as accustomed to, like normal, or is it just like a new normal when it comes to how you feel when you're going to work every day?
No, it's still pretty scary to be honest with you. I mean, literally,
I
the,
can
the
imagine.
trains out of Atlanta. I mean, I was the only person in my car for the whole ride.
Wow.
When I got to Charlotte, literally, you can there's no one in any of the there's very few people in the concourses. I was actually in a concourse all by myself. That's the
Wow.
entire wing of the airport by myself. So it is definitely scary. Whereas 2 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't walk through there without bumping somebody's shoulder. Um, yeah, that's something that I don't think any pilot has gotten used to yet. As
Wow.
much as we see it, it's hard to get used to. I mean,
I can imagine.
it's really hard to get used to, man. There's no traffic around the airport. It's scary. It's scary to say the least.
Hmm.
Because that's what our job is. Our job is interacting with the public. Bringing one person from point A to point B. It's scary that we're not doing that now. You know, it's definitely scary for sure.
Oh wow. What advice or resources would you give to passengers who have already like booked their flights in advance for this year or are actually interested in getting like a refund or rescheduling? How can they go about that and what resources? I know it might vary per airline carrier, but generally, what would you suggest for them to do or start?
Right now, I know the only thing I know heavy on that point is I know American Airlines had put out a thing because when this pandemic started going really rampant in February, March, and around that time period is when it really started going crazy. People were calling the hotlines. I mean, not the hotlines, but people were calling calling the phone lines very, very, very. I
Yeah.
mean, their trips weren't until months later they were calling in. Um, what the airlines has put out, and I'm sure Delta and the others have put out the same thing. Hey, you know, if your trip is not for the next few months, don't call in. You know, there are other callers that need to be taken care of now. I think
Mm-hmm.
the thing is consideration.
Right.
You know, just like with the tissue thing, you don't need 1,000 things of tissue.
Very
Yeah,
true.
you
Very
know
true.
what I'm saying? Be considerate of others. Be considerate that there are other callers that may be calling in for now for their flights tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So as it relates to that, that's one resource I would give them. As far as refunds, airlines have, I think they are still 100% are giving full refunds for flights. I don't think that's not an issue anymore. If you are fearful of traveling, if you no longer need to travel, if you're traveling just for leisure, for fun, not for work reasons,
Stay
stay home.
home. Yep.
Stay home. Don't even take it upon yourself to go out there because then from there you're going to have a possibility of infecting someone else. That's what happened in Jamaica. As a perfect
Mm.
example. My little island. Individuals from here, when the pandemic started going crazy in that same February March time frame, they ran home,
Hmm.
and when they ran home, guess who they infected?
Right.
Their family members, and that's how the spread of stuff gets around. Hey, just stay home. All right, stay home, quarantine yourself, and in this time, spend time with yourself, spend time with your family. You know, that's what you need to do. Enjoy the outside, fresh air, keep social distancing rules,
I couldn't
and it
agree
will be all right.
anymore. That's actually what happened in New York too. They realized that once it was ramping up, a lot of people from New York would try to like go to, Florida, Orlando,
Florida, yeah,
exactly, and that was a big issue too. So the best advice, you said it, is just to stay home. Just sit this one out and
that's
stay
right.
safe. Lastly, the American people need hope that the pandemic will actually blow over. What words of encouragement or advice would you tell them to just, ease their anxiety or fears? You might have covered it earlier, but what would you say if you had to tell them one last thing?
For me, I'd say God is still in control. That's the key aspect. But we have gone through much worse. I mean, not necessarily not much worse in the eyes of other people. But 9/11 was a big thing. 2008 was a big thing, and all of those things we fought as a human race together and made it through. I don't see this one being much different. The thing is, I think a lot of negativity is going on TV, and I think that's what's evoking fear in a lot of individuals. They're looking at the death toll, they're seeing it rise. I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist, but when you look at those numbers and you start to really see, you start seeing a trend. Individuals who are dying are typically individuals who are older age, who have other sickness and ailments. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but what I'm saying is don't take it upon yourself right now to stress, go crazy. Right now is the time to pray, enjoy time with family, stay home. It will all blow over. The economy is still strong. It's not like the economy was weak and this is going on. The economy is strong. Right now, we're just going through something as a race, and it's going to take time, but it will get better. I think the last thing I saw in the news was they started seeing that it's starting to taper off some right now, especially with social distancing. I know Atlanta has, set curfews up for 7 o'clock, be home at 7. Charlotte Airport is closed at 5 p.m., stuff like that. It's going to get better. Like I said, just hold your head up, be prayerful, hopeful, and it will all be better in those no time. For sure.
Well said. Well, thank you so much for taking this time out to, join in this conversation. I really appreciate it. And
no worries, man. I'm glad to be a part. Thanks so much. And you guys enjoy yourself. Thank you again.